How's it going? We're back. Patterdale Talk Wednesdays. I'm here with a very, very special guest. Our first person I think we interviewed that is not, excuse me, that is not located in the United States. We have Robert Booth with us. He is a lot of you guys know him. He is a legend in the Patterdale world.
Oh dear.
Yeah, Robert, you wanna sir, you wanna say a little something before we get into the interview?
Hello everybody. I hope you're all keeping well, and if it can be of any help on anything or not, let me know and I'll try the best I can.
Yeah. Well, we I started this live just so everyone can learn a little bit more about the Patterdale Terrier, including myself, and we could all come here and learn together. You know what I mean? So it's great to have you on. I want to say thank you. It's so much appreciated to get you on
here.
It's
my pleasure. I'm sorry if I've messed you about time-wise and things. I didn't realize there's such a time difference, but we've got there now.
Yeah, exactly. It's no problem. No worries. We're here now. Yeah, I mean, I guess we'll just the first question I always ask, kind of like the main thing people want to know, when you're interviewing or talking to someone, especially someone like you, is how long ago did you get into it? And like obviously it was years now, 30, 40 plus years now. Could we just talk about that? But,
I think I started off when I was around about 9 years old with my uncle. He kept lurchers, like running dogs, for catching hares and rabbits and foxes. And he also kept some very good terriers, but Jack Russells. And he used to take me with him on weekends. And I was hooked from the moment I first went. And he introduced me to a guy called Cyril Bray, who I really liked. And he was a headmaster, a very quiet, tall, slim man, an old man at the time. I'm talking of round about 1964. I'm 70 years old now, so I'm just an old codger. But yeah, and I liked Cyril Bray's dogs because they were Patterdales and weren't many about then. There'd struggle be maybe 100 in England, if that. There was very, very few, and just select people had them. Brian Nuttall, who lived down the road from me, had them. And his boss, that was a gamekeeper, he had them. Brian used to be an underkeeper. And just Frank Buck, and I even bought a few dogs from Frank Buck and vice versa. So, I was only a young lad at the time and very keen on it. And I found the Patterdales bred good working dogs and kept throwing themselves, whereas the Jack Russells, you could get a fantastic Jack Russell. But I personally found that if you bred from them, you could breed from two of the best dogs going, and they didn't reproduce themselves.
Okay.
I thought it was more hit and miss. Yeah. Maybe the show scene spoiled them a bit that was coming out then, and people just breeding for looks rather than for work. So I started when I was 9. I'm 70 now, so you could say almost 60 years ago. So it was a long time.
Yes. Been doing it for a long time. What was your where did you get your first Patterdale? Did you get it from your uncle or?
Mr. Bray, I had my first Patterdale from. And I also had quite early on, I had a dog called Tan from Brian Nuttall, who was only a young man then. And that was a pure Bray bred dog, or I considered it a pure Bray. Brian had bred it, but from Bray bred stuff. So I considered it a Bray dog, if you like. It's a bit like saying somebody's got a Booth dog and, I don't know, Fred Smith's bred it or something. But if it's both sides all going back to mine, I suppose they'd call it a Booth dog. But everybody started from somewhere. Yeah, Mr. Bray himself, no doubt, and kept the type of dogs he liked. I like a good finding dog's most important, and an intelligent dog. But if they're not bred to work regular, I do find as they can lose them traits, which is a shame really, because they're very, very important traits. You know, the show ring can spoil them a bit, but hopefully good judges will pick out decent working dogs, and they've got a few medals and scars. You know, and obvious telltale signs that they're good, decent working dogs.
Yeah.
So
what do you like best in dogs? Is it the nose? Is it the bite?
First and foremost, they've got to find, and I like a dog that'll find where other fellas have put a dog in and there's nothing in there, and you put yours in and it's gone a lot deeper, and all of a sudden it's been on. And I like a dog that not only finds well and finds through. With badgers here, they've got to find very well because they'll often bury themselves in sand, and they could bury themselves 6 foot in, and a young dog can get confused. And a good, intelligent dog will be digging in the right direction through the sand. A little bit like you would. I've worked a few things in the States too. I've been over a few times and all over the world really. And a little bit like you would groundhogs, you know, tend to be, I won't say bury themselves in, but very tight spots and very, they've got to dig through sand to find them. So you've got to have a right good dog to find. And then I find the most important thing is something that will hold it at a stop end. In other words, it's got to be tough enough, but not a fool as it's going to get killed with the badger, because the British badgers and European badgers are very, very hard. They might not look it, but they're very, very hard. It's a good dog to dig a badger on its own.
Is that what you hunt most out there?
Yes. That's my main. I always think it's a good test of a dog. We'd consider definitely. A fox is a hard animal and can sicken a dog to a certain degree. Probably on a similar par, somebody could disagree with me, but a similar par with a raccoon. But a raccoon's a totally different animal. He habits a different type of place, as you know yourself, can be in walls, up trees, up
pretty much anywhere.
In between layers of rooms or whatever, and old buildings. Some of the lads I used to go with, barn burner boys, they called themselves, from Ohio, some of the old derelict cottages that are out there, they used to deliberately take an odd tile off so that the raccoons would get in through the roof and make a home, and they'd got another place to go hunting, sort of thing, you know. But only on derelict houses. I don't mean anything, somebody's nice home or anything like that.
Yeah. So, not ruining someone's attic.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. So what is the so out where you're at, is it mostly like the terrain, is it mostly sand? Is it?
Well, actually where I am, I've got to travel a little bit. It's quite rocky here. When I was in England, I lived in a place called Cheshire on the Staffordshire-Cheshire border, which is obviously where the Staffordshire Bull Terrier comes from, and originally. And it was more sand and a different. I soon learned you'd need a different type of dog for a different area. Sandy places, you don't need as big a dog. You might need a little bit squarer dog. In fact, a lot of the old men used to use the Jack Russells and almost Sealyham or Teckle crosses a little bit low to the ground, because a badger will plough under a terrier and almost crush him up to the top of the earth. Whereas they are very low down, and the leggy terriers, they tend to give a lot of damage, and under the chin always a badger damage, where a fox will always give damage on top of the nose. You know, so different.
So badgers tend to go. They tend to go for the neck. We don't have a lot of them. We don't have anywhere I'm at out here, but
yeah, no offense, you have a solitary badger, an American badger, and I'm just telling the truth of what it is. They tend to live in a one-hole, and often solo. They often live in a one-hole earth and could go in 15 foot on average. Somebody could say, oh, I've dug one that was a lot deeper and so on, but they tend to be one tube going in and back out, and you can often catch them out. They're a lot easier, I'm afraid, to be honest, than a European badger. A European badger's deadly. They tend to hold the terrier with its teeth, and the big claws on them this is where they take all the damage under the chin, and they can strip a dog to bone and ruin them. To be honest, some of the Irish lads use like a guard today. I've never ever used one, but some of them, they tell me, use like a metal guard that's a tailor-made thing to protect the chin. It's no advantage as regards working anything, but it's a protection. So that's a relatively new thing about this last 15, 20 years.
Yeah.
So that's that. When we were first started, you had to listen. So you needed a terrier that sounded. By sound, I mean bay or bark. So a lot of the old men, my uncle included, preferred the Jack Russells and Borders, etc. for that reason. They'd give voice and bark, bark. Some of the older Patterdales just want to mix and go straight in. And if you're listening, all you could hear was that typical thud, 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 bump, bump, bump. And if it was very deep, you'd hear nothing until the locators come out, which I was relatively lucky. The locators come out, the first Devon locators come out when I'd be early 20s. But the 10 years before that, you had to do it the old-fashioned way and listen round, have a bar and prod down and listen at this hole of the bar and get an idea from the entrance which way they'd headed, and hopefully it hadn't turned 100 degrees back on itself or whatever, or should I say 90 degrees back on itself.
And I can see why the bay dogs would be a lot more needed then.
Yeah, my uncle wouldn't thank you for a Patterdale. He thought they were a waste of time. But I thought his dogs... He had a very, very good bitch that was called Cindy. Most of its face was eaten away. A little Russell bitch, you wouldn't give tuppence for it, but he dug a lot of badgers and a lot of foxes with it. But if he could talk to it almost, and she was super intelligent, and if he shouted down the earth, "Get on, girl," you'd hear her go in harder. And he could call her out, which is a definite no-no. You think, oh, any dog you could call out's absolute rubbish. But she was a freak, and he'd call her out, and she'd come running out, dying for go back in fairness, and he'd lift her under his arm and put her on a lead, fasten her to a tree, and just wait with the gun. And if it was a fox, he'd say, "Shh, be quiet," like, and that was only a boy. And within 2 or 3 minutes, out had come the bloody fox the moment he thought the dog had left it alone. So it was a crafty way of saving digging and getting an easy fox, and it always worked. But there isn't many terriers like her. Yeah. I know he'd had round about 800 or 900 foxes with her in a lifetime, and she lived for about 9, but she'd had a hell of a lot of work and almost unrecognisable sort of thing. You know, you'd get arrested with it today, I'm afraid. But people were a bit tougher, if you want to say that, in my day, and not quite so woke and not quite so, oh, what a shame. You know, a fox was a nuisance, killing lambs or whatever, killing chickens, and they've got to be killed type of thing. Yeah. Whereas badgers, I like badgers because we could go to a big set, dig a badger. It could be all day work, 4 or 5 of us, 15 foot deep. And obviously you want a dog that's going to hold it in one place. You don't want to get down 12 foot or nearly to a badger and then it's moved the other side of the bloody set and you've got to dig again. So you want a good dog that's going to hold it in that place. And somebody putting 2 dogs in or 3 dogs in, rubbish. They'd actually, the front dog, which is the best dog, gets hurt because the others are all keen, a bit like men in a pub. The others are all keen when they're behind. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. You go, sort of thing. And they're all pushing from behind, and the dog can't dodge and weave and work properly. Yeah. A single dog gets hurt a lot less because he'll hold it there, but he can work, and there's nothing pushing him on and making him have a face full. Yeah. So that's been my experience, and all the old men know that, like, you know, and anybody that's done fair bit of digging knows that. People think, I can put 3 or 4 terriers in and it'll hold it there. You end up ruining all 3 of them terriers because one ends up at the front. You could put it in last. It'll still, the bravest dog will get through to the front. and he will get smashed to pieces because he's getting pushed from behind, and he can't dodge and weave, as I say. So you've ruined the best dog, or soon will ruin the best dog, putting several dogs in the same earth against an hard animal. Now, I'm not on about, no offence, rabbits or groundhogs or something more. I'm not saying they don't get bitten, but something that's nowhere near as tough that isn't going to actually go and kill your dog, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So,
is that your favorite thing to hunt, badger or fox, or do you have a preference? Or
I quite like over here. We have a lot of what you call nutria rats, we call koipu, and they're almost badger size, like a water rat, really. And sometimes a good terrier's got to go under the water and back up onto a dry ledge to find them, and the good ones can. Others are just come to water and the hearse full of water, it's no good. But it's a bit risky because you don't know how far that's going to go. But the good ones get that used to it; they can sort of swim under the water and come back up and work. You know, so and as I say, locators are such a boon today. They're fantastic. You know, you can't lose a terrier, and always dig your terrier. Never just wait there till it comes off. As you're learning something to walk away, and the last thing you ever want to do is learn something to quit. Even the puppy, I give him a shake, and I get it that excited. I take it away while it's still excited, and always leave them wanting more. Never sicken something, I'd say, you know, is the best. It's a bit like putting a young boy boxing gloves on and getting him a right good hiding. You're just going to ruin him, and he could end up being a good one spoiled. So sorry if I'm ranting on a bit. But,
no, that's perfect. That's
something I love.
People want to know, and we're out here to learn things from you. What does it say? Jamie Park has left a comment, and they could leave a comment in the chats that we could pull up on the screen. Pretty sure you can see it now. I have a nice handwritten pedigree from Mr. Booth on his dog Tiny and Whiskey Simon, both written in 1996. That's Jamie Park. I'm pretty sure you know Jamie Park.
Yeah, I know Jamie well. Hello, Jamie. I hope you're well. Them are two dogs at Tony Riverlotta. He was kind enough to invite me over, and we had some good hunting. I was over for almost a month, and but in fairness, I didn't just stay just with him. I did visit some other lads too. Tommy Weaver down in New Orleans and so on. A bit of different hunting down there, and Tony Riverlotta was one of the early guys, probably with the Patterdales, and so he had the tiny bitch off me, which was a very good bitch. He pestered me, for no offence to Tony, but he did pester me for her. I didn't really want to part with her. And he had the Simon dog from me. And he also had a dog called Whiskey, which was Simon's brother, that he bought from Dave Harcombe, who wrote a few of the books and things. Dave Harcombe had him off me as a young working dog, and I gave him actually, and he's sold him to big money for the States, but that's often the case. But that's it. And a few decent dogs I sent over. I sent Todd Fulford of Dead Game Patterdales. I sent him the Milo dog, which was a good working dog when he had him, and only a young dog. I think he was about 2 years old. A young chocolate dog. Sorry, Lou. No, you're okay. You're okay. It's my granddaughter. Excuse me. And so I sent him over, and I gave him actually, and he became, I think, probably one of the first Hall of Fame dogs. And he was also, I don't know, awarded something like Worker Extraordinaire or some title like that, something I'd never heard of before. He was a decent enough dog, a good dog, and I knew he'd breed well because he was double bred on both his mother and his father. One was Tiny and the other was Let me just think back. I can make mistakes on pedigrees like anybody else. One was Tiny and the other was Simon. And they were both out of me Tonic Hall of Fame bitch.
Okay.
One was out of Tonic and Tipperary Tim, and the other was out of Tonic and Old Sam. And Old Sam was a border cross to a very, very good bitch and a very good border too. And he was hell of a dog. He was a fantastic badger dog. That's the only reason I bred him. In fact, I had him a while and a few other fellas bred off him. And I'm a great believer in letting other people breed off things and see how the offspring comes. And everything off him was working. So I used him myself then. And, trial and error, really. He was throwing good dogs to mediocre bitches of other people's. So I put him on some right good bitches and he threw tremendous stuff. And he was probably one of the best finding dogs I've ever seen. And everybody that saw him was impressed when we dug with him. He's a hell of a good dog. The border terrier in him was Levi Oak stuff, which was very, very good. I know my friend John Park, not long since passed away. He used, there was two dogs called Danny and Simmy, pure borders, and he used Simmy a lot, which was hell of a good dog. And I actually used Danny the once and crossed it into my Patterdale line for an outcross, really. Once I thought they started getting a bit close, I think as long as it's a good dog, you want an outcross every now and then. And people used to laugh at me when I bred things that were related. But I noticed in the States, they sort of accepted that as they do in Australia with the racehorses and greyhounds, etc. So, and even for putting pedigrees down and writing them down, just for my own reference to know, it's got a quarter of so-and-so and 3/4 of so-and-so and trial and error and see what was clicking and what wasn't. And that, to be honest with you, it's not rocket science. I just more or less mixed up and repeated what worked well for me. And similar crosses and anything with old Tonic in, she's split lip Tonic, I used to call her. They were very hard and worked really well. And Tim was a super little dog. And so I more or less bred everything around that and still do. I've only just last year lost Tonic's oldest daughter, which was 22 years of age, which was a bitch called Guinness, and she threw some tremendous stuff too, and also in the Hall of Fame. So I don't know why, because I don't breed that often. I'm always amazed that I'm sort of known at all, really, because a lot of lads, as you know, have always got a litter of pups, and I tend to breed once a year. Just lately, I've only bred one litter every 2 to 3 years. Last one was not last year, late the year before. So the pups actually sold early last year, and I've bred none this year. So, but I tend to breed when I want something myself to top up a worker, and then sell off. So I'm not breeding for trying sell anything as such. I couldn't care less. I don't need the money, and I just try and breed as good a quality as I can, hopefully.
So you're kind of like, which are like the Booth bloodline kind of just happened.
Yeah, there's one or two guys that sort of were very pleased with what they had from me and buffed it up a lot and so on. And of course, that causes two things either way. It causes silly jealousies. It causes kennel blindness. It causes a bit like anybody with the pit bulls or anything. You either got somebody you like or you dislike. But to me, kennel blindness is crazy. And I don't care if a guy's my worst enemy or my best friend. If his dog's a good dog, it's a good dog. And if it's a rubbish dog, and it's my father, it's a rubbish dog. So it is what it is. Yeah. I think kennel blindness spoils your breeding in terriers. You don't, not having one from him because I don't like him, it is insane. Yeah.
The dog's still good.
Yeah, if a dog's good, it's good, and the dog doesn't know who its owner is, or what a tosser he is, or what a good bloke he is, and there's plenty of rubbish men that have had fantastic dogs, maybe lost them and spoiled them, and plenty of great men that have had mediocre dogs and so on. So I think you just got to judge. Personally, I think you should just judge a dog for what it does, not for somebody saying, oh, you know, my friend says this and my friend says that, and his friend doesn't even know the man concerned. It's just a bit childish, really, and I don't see the point of it. I think we're all hopefully into terriers and hunting dogs for the love of hunting, and I don't care. Excuse me, I don't care if somebody's black, white, pink, or grey. It makes no difference if you're a good guy or a bad guy. You're a good guy or a bad guy, and if you've got good dogs, you've got good dogs. Great stuff. So that's how I look at it.
Yeah.
And,
yeah.
You know, I often, as you no doubt you have yourself, or plenty of you guys will have done, somebody mentioned somebody, oh, I don't like him, all his dogs are rubbish, I don't like him, and I don't like it, you know. And to me, it can be a bit childish. I don't like calling anybody at all. If I don't like them, I tend to have nothing to do with them and leave it at that. But if you've got a good dog, great stuff, and good luck to them, and give it credit where it's due. So that's that.
Yeah. So out here we have our dogs are a little smaller, probably because of our game. What's your ideal size for a dog?
Well, we don't tend to weigh them as I notice you do in the States.
Okay.
We tend.
Is there a reason for that, or you just?
I've got hands like shovels, but I tend to chest a dog, and know how narrow it is to my own hands. Mm-hmm. Obviously, somebody with bigger hands can chest a dog easier than somebody with little tiny hands. But when you're judging a dog, I'll go through that a bit if you like, which has been traditional judging of terriers for hundreds of years. Okay. And I think I was 15 when I was asked to judge my first decent terrier show. Working terrier show, hunting terrier show, but everybody local knew I was hunting mad and got fair terriers. And I always thought it was as good. It's easy. It costs no more to keep a good dog than a bad dog. So try and keep good ones. And nobody wants a puppy off a bad dog. You don't yourself. And I don't think a bad dog's worth feeding personally. You know, but we all get different likes and dislikes. I sort of
have our own
almost fall in love with the dog when it proves itself to be super duper, you know. And judging a terrier, sorry, I'll get back to what you were saying. It's not so much the weight, because Patterdales tend to be as heavy as lead, I always say. They can be heavy and heavy boned and long in the body, a bit like a fox is long in the body, but very narrow. And if they narrow around the chest cage and nice straight legs and narrow front shoulders, I don't mean the big, broad, almost bully type fronts, which can look impressive, but they struggle to get through narrow places, and they've got to get through narrow places and so on. And also, you don't want a dog that's going to come to roots and it can't get through, and something a fox has gone through and the terrier's stuck there. You don't want him barking there either until he's actually with it, because you're going to be digging down at the wrong spot, unless you're going to dig down and it's not too deep and help him through and cut the few roots, and then he'll go and do his work.
Yeah.
A nice narrow dog, I should say, with a narrow front. And I like a dog with a good strong head. Some will disagree with me. I'm just saying what I prefer. I always think if the head's the only thing facing the opposition, and he's got nice big teeth and a nice good bite and a good strong head, he's got something better to
help him out with down there.
Yeah, he's got a bit more ammunition. Yeah. You know, I mean, there's always examples of somebody having some tiny little terrier with a little tiny head, and it's as hard as hell and kills stuff. Yes, I've heard of them and seen them myself, and yes, but I always think if something's better equipped, it personally has more advantage physically. I'm not saying it's particularly a better dog, but hopefully if you breed around that, I don't know. It's like Sugar Ray Leonard was a fantastic boxer, but he'd only got tiny little hands. But he made liars out of everybody with massive hands. You know, yes, he was fantastic. He was probably one of the best ever been.
and you'll always find an example of that with dogs. But I personally wouldn't breed to it. I'd breed to what I think's Brian Nuttall and Ken Gold used to say to me when I was a young man, a very young man, a young boy really, they'd say breeding to the very best worker isn't always good enough. And for years, I couldn't quite understand what they meant. I thought, well, you know, if you breed to the best, yes, you do breed to a good family and a family that reproduces, not to a one-off freak, if you like. Because it's a bit like breeding lurchers, and you've got lots of different crosses in them, and maybe one that's thrown to the whippet and another's thrown to a greyhound, another's thrown to the collie, and there's that many variables. Whereas a family, you tend to get a bit, apples don't fall too far from the tree, hopefully.
Guardian of the Hive, how you guys doing? They have a question. Are there other bloodlines in England, in Ireland, that you admire?
Yeah, I never ever call anybody's dogs, and if somebody's happy with them, they keep them, and that's why they keep them. From what I've seen of the cocker dogs, I've been very impressed with. A few of the guys tell me, and I'm not trying to offend nobody or insult anybody, and somebody go crazy for me. I'm just saying things how some of the top guys I know that do a lot of digging tell me these great starters but soon to quit. Now, whether that's true or not, I don't know. Maybe I'm talking out of place. I haven't experienced enough, in fairness. But a few I've seen I've been very, very impressed with and very, very gamey. And I remember talking to Alan Cocker a few years ago, not only briefly on the phone once when I was living in Tipperary, and he'd moved to Ireland. And he told me his origins were the same from Cyril Bray. So maybe he'd highlight that better than I could, because I'd be talking ignorant and saying that I knew much about the lines. But from what I can see, since I've left Tipperary Ireland this last 20 years, and obviously I'm not breeding there anymore, there tends to be more people using the Alan Cocker dogs, and with great success and pleased with them. So good luck and long may you continue. You know, so other lines, I had some, I've had dogs and exchanged dogs with John Parks. I liked his bingo dog from years ago, and his red dog, what was his called? Oh, good heavens, my head's gone. He's on the front cover of the Fell Terrier magazine. In fact, one of the famous pictures of it, and of John, I took. It's gone. I'll no sooner finish. I'll remember the name, but that's typical. And all you can do is be as honest as you can, write things down as clearly as you can. Hopefully, you don't mix up lines when you're filling pedigrees in. We've all done it. And made a mistake, especially handwritten. But this is the beauty of computers today. It's there's no mistakes made, and hopefully everything will be double checked. But you know, it's only a piece of paper when said and done. It's got to be the dogs, and you know, it's an old friend of mine in Ireland used to say it's poor paper. It's poor paper that won't accept ink, and people can put anything on paper, which is true. And you know, whereas a good dog can't be beaten, and a proof of a family is in the proof of the pudding is in the eating, and that's it, really. So, so
Jamie
Park, you don't ask me, work away.
Jamie Park says, "I truly believe in good genetics." Yeah,
I think it's important. As I say, the old-fashioned guys in England, and some still do, if you wrote a pedigree down, they thought you were crazy. And what do you want to know what anything is bred for? Well, they don't know if they were breeding. They didn't care less. They hadn't a clue if you said, what was the grandfather of that good dog you got? Well, I don't know. I only saw its mother. I don't know. And they could have been breeding it to its full brother, its full sister, its no relation whatsoever. They didn't know and didn't care. They just, it's a good dog, I'll breed it, and that's that. And when it works, great stuff. But a lot of time, to be honest, it doesn't, because you're not really creating a family. A lot will condemn me for that and say, no, all that matters is you breed a good dog to a good dog. But I personally, and a few of other decent chaps that have known breeders like Ryan and like Cyril Bray and John Parks, I disagree and think you need a family base. Whether it's top greyhounds, top racehorses, top anything really, I suppose, hounds and coon hounds and tick hounds and everything else, as you guys know yourself. Yes, you can go and get a gamecock from a Rhode Island Red and something else, and it absolutely a will beater, but you come for breed off it, it won't throw anything worth a candle. And that's...
and you don't know, you can't go back and figure out where the good or bad genetics come from in a dog if you don't know the history.
Well, I think if you can, if a full litter worked absolutely fantastic and did everything bloody great, and you can try and study what clicked, and I'm a great believer in certain lines click too. I do believe you could maybe outcross, I don't know, a cocker with one of mine, and they could be bloody rubbish, and that's not condemning him or me. It's just that, or they could be will beaters. They could be fantastic. It's just a bit of trial and error, and if it works, I say repeat it, and if it doesn't work, dump it, and simple as that, really. And I tend to work around, as I said earlier on, with things that clicked and went well, and I've studied the breeding as best I can, and in an old-fashioned way, and done a few rules that I was given that were probably make genetic people laugh, but Mr. Bray used to say to me years ago, and I'd only be 9 years old, I remember I used to live on every word he said, and he used to say twice in and once out, and then go back in again. In other words, go twice into your family, and maybe go and outcross, and try and put right with your outcross any faults you have got. And every family's got faults, whether it's long tail, short head, short teeth, big teeth, whatever. And try and correct it with your outcross, and then go back into the family again. And hopefully you'll end up with a good solid line, and you're improving. To me, pups should be better than the forebears. Somebody said, the grandparents were better or whatever. I think you're going the wrong direction if you're not breeding better and if things are not improving. As with greyhounds today, they're faster than they've ever been. They might be a bit more frail, but they're faster than they've ever been, as are racehorses and racing pigeons and things. They're just getting phenomenally fast or better for the purpose they're bred for. And if it's done right, hopefully it'll get stronger and stronger. And guys in the States, in for all fairness, tend to you get silly buggers in England and whatnot that are a bit ignorant and sort of knock them and say, oh, they don't know what they got, they haven't got hard stuff, they don't know, they don't know, they've never seen, they've never been over, they never dug anything, they've never seen a raccoon, and that's a bit unfair unless you've been in, unless you've sucked it and seen, you don't know. And I think the American way and careful breeding, as long as it's tested and proven as well. I don't mean just stick to a family and just breed willy-nilly. Every racehorse alive today stems from 6 racehorses. And you can get a racehorse that's only fit for the slaughter.
Sorry about that.
And another one worth millions. So you've got to be selective. Okay, sorry. I know we're rattle on.
No. That's what we're here for. That's fine. Jamie Park, Randy Rolison.
Oh,
the old
yes,
Andy
Randy.
American
Hi.
Kennels asked me to say, I guess she's saying a big hello to you.
A big hello. Hi, Wendy. Hope you're well. Nice to hear.
So Jamie, let her know.
And say a big hello to everybody anyway.
Yeah. Oh, it's Guardian in the Hive.
Guardian of the Hive. He's got a 7/8 cocker, a young pup, and he's liking the character of it so far. Fantastic. And as I say, I hear most of them are incredibly game, and maybe some have started a bit too soon, in fairness, and spoiled. It's not so much as they're not lasting as long. Maybe they just started a bit too soon. It's like getting a very young 14, 15-year-old boy that wants to fight everybody, and he starts going up against men, he could soon get sickened. And I suppose it's the same with the terrier. You've got to mind them a bit and try and be careful the type of earths and places you turn them in. I think it's very important. A young dog, you should always be able to dig to him and know you're going to a place that you can get down quite quickly. By quickly, I mean within half an hour or so. And none of this, I know it's only a foot deep, I'm going to sit and have a cigarette and let it see how long it stays. And that's crazy. It's a bit like a game pit bull and putting it against 3 or 4 others while it's absolutely exhausted and a young dog. All you're going to do is ruin it.
Yeah.
I think it should just be brought on nice and steady. A good dog will always prove itself and be exceptional. And a bad dog will obviously prove itself too. So anyway, I'm very pleased, and I love to think somebody's doing well with any line of dog, and keen to know which they're pleased with, and marvelous. It's some people take the dogs onto new heights, and I'm very impressed with a few American breeders, and and some are throwing incredible working dogs, but they actually work the dogs and test them, and that's the only way. It's you can't guess you've got a good racehorse if you never ever race it and time it and so on. And I suppose it's the same with a working dog. Eventually they'll lose every dog alive's originated from a wolf, from a poodle to a chihuahua to a pit bull. So and a lot of people have bred what they want to breed and don't disclose everything. I've always disclosed whatever I've bred, but I personally believe, has probably upset a lot of people, the original staffs that went over from England and Ireland, I personally believe they were crossed with different things. A lot would never admit they were crossed, but all of a sudden you've got great, big, powerful and super dogs, and the outcrosses done them absolutely fantastic. And good luck to them. But I should imagine if somebody had known what they were crossing them with, they'd have said, "Oh, you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't do. You do your own thing, and if it works, great. And if it doesn't, cull them." And that's the way we all learn. So,
what are some American bloodlines that impress you?
I'm trying to think of the name of the chap now that has the red dogs. Oh, good heavens. He tends to keep red ones back. I'm terrible with names. Please excuse me. But I like men that they're not always liked by everybody. It doesn't matter. But I know they've kept some right good dogs and only interested in breeding good top dogs. I was always impressed with Tommy Weaver. He wouldn't stand no rubbish. It had got to be a good dog. It didn't matter if it looked absolutely perfect and a massive head and, I'm not going to breed off that. It had got to prove itself. And whether you like the guy, dislike the guy or whatever, if he said a dog was a good dog, in fairness, it was a bloody good dog. And as I say, all this liking somebody or disliking somebody, I find a little bit pathetic. I think we're all hopefully beyond jealousies and in it for the right reason and just for the love of a good working terrier that's doing its job and doing what it was bred to do, and hopefully not spoiled along the way and not ruined. I do find some, I'll probably be ridiculed again, I do find some in the States tend to breed tiny, almost so much that they lose the constitution, almost getting like a rat terrier or I won't go so far as saying a chihuahua, but getting that little frail dog. Yeah. And I do like to think something's got some power to do something when it's there.
Not to cut you off, what's your opinion about like too small? As far as the Patterdale Terrier, what would you say is like too small a size? Well, I said you don't weigh as much out there, so
yeah. Well, personally, a male. Don't forget we've got big badger sets and foxes definitely smaller. They can be good size. Don't get me wrong, but they can go in. A fox will go up a rabbit tube similar to the size of a groundhog, and it's got to be a good narrow terrier to get to it and do its job. I've seen narrow terriers that are not interested in doing the job and don't really push on. And I've seen dogs that look a bit big, surprising, get up tight pipes. But that's a lot to do with gameness and finding ability. But obviously, if it's built better for the job and nicely balanced, is ideal. I personally think a dog much smaller than 9 or a bitch much smaller than 9 inches is too small. And I think a dog 10 to 13 inches is ideal. I think once you start getting 15, 16, 17 inch, they might be great for badgers over here. But I think for the American job, they're a little bit too big.
Yeah, they are.
And Brian agreed with that. He used to try and keep them quite small just for America, really. He always found America a good trade for him and good luck to him.
We do need them a little smaller out here. And the places that do have badger out here, they're not as big as you guys' badger.
Yeah, I've crawled. I mean, I'm 110 kilo and 6 foot tall. And I've squeezed down badger sets in some big places and seen a terrier holding 7 big badgers in one pot end. And they can be ferocious. And, so there's that much bloody room. It takes hell of a good terrier to hold them. And if a badger's been dug several times and released, as we often did, because they're that tough, you're not harming them. They get wiser, tougher, and harder. And some will actually come to the entrance and attack your dogs as they're coming in, and actually push terriers out. And but a good terrier will stick with him, and he'll hang on its nose, and it might push him almost to the entrance, and it'll go straight back with him, and it'll eventually settle down and hold him at that stop end. Sometimes you've got to be a bit wise, and you've been there a few times, and you've dug this one a few times, and it's some people would almost say they're undiggable, but you tend to, with a bit of old-fashioned knowledge, if you like, dig a little bit further back. You're almost digging on the tail of the terrier. So the terrier, the badger knows if you're coming down in between the two and he's been dug a time or two, the moment you're getting very close, all of a sudden the terrier starts squealing because he wants to move and he knows you're coming in. So if you're digging a little bit cuter and a little touch further back, you can slide your spade over the front of the terrier and then chop your way into the stop end and tail him and pull him out. We tail a badger. And they can't harm you at all. But you've got to be very careful. You don't want your fingers bitten or bitten off.
How many times have you been bitten, if you can remember?
I've been bitten once by a badger, and it was my own stupid fault. And that was about 10 years ago. Okay. I'm laughing and joking. I'd got one in my hand, and I went to wipe my nose, of all things, and broke my hand near its jaw, and it just caught the end of my finger and almost took my finger off. I've never been bitten by a fox, but I know a lot of people who have, and a fox is a lot more quick to bite you, but you've got to be extra careful. If you catch hold of a fox, catch him by the ears, the 2 ears, and hold them together almost, and you're like pulling his face taut then, and you can hold him in the one hand. And you've got his ears, he won't go nowhere. Or the scruff of his neck close to his skull. He can't sort of turn and bite you. And you can put him in a sack. And a badger's the opposite. You grab him by the tail and hold him up and at arm's length and well away, and somebody will hold the sack open and put him in, and you can go and release it somewhere safer if the farmer wants it moving. So I'm quite lucky in France because it's legal here at certain times of the year. And certain seasons, but in England and Ireland, I'm afraid badger digging is illegal. They made it, all the do-gooders and all the whatever have made it as if, I think at one time they come out and said there was only 6 badgers left in England or something, and which was ridiculous. I knew dozens in one field, never mind in all England. But because they come out at night, the ignorant public took it all in and didn't know any better. And nowadays, England's rife with TB, tuberculosis in cattle, which is spread through badger urine. It's I think it's 2,500 times more potent in badger urine than it is in cow feces. So
yeah,
here we go.
Jesus. It's crazy.
But I used to think if we dug them regular and in any weaklings, we'd tap them or something with something wrong with it or illness. So the badger itself was getting strong because we always let the good, healthy ones go and there for another day. And we might leave it a year before we go back to him. We'd had that many different sets to go. Whereas foxes, you could only go winter time or just as a hard rain had come, you could nip out and often catch him. He'd just run in a set. And he'd use a badger set as well and go in the back end of it. But a lot of the time, a fox will be out in the woods and in the brambles and in the cover. So you can always find a badger, a European badger, but you couldn't always find a fox to ground unless it's cubbing time or winter time, hard frost, etc. That's it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. What did it say? What's your thoughts on Lakeland Terrier? I really like them.
My true thoughts is I think there's some beautiful looking Lakeland Terriers, and they tend to be Lakeland crosses that win most of the shows. I like a Patterdale. I like a smooth dog, but that's my preference and more for work than anything else. I do think you get a nice typey type of terrier. I do find them a little bit like Russells. Don't get me wrong. If you get, I don't care, it's a Border, a Russell, a Lakeland Terrier. If you get a good one, they're as good as any. But I do tend to find they don't breed as true as some of the lines. The only trouble is, I think the show world is beginning to eat into the Patterdale Terriers. Most people who had Patterdale Terriers up until this last 10 years were hunting men, whereas most people who had Lakelands were going to the shows and looking for the prettiest dog and so on. You can get fantastic Lakelands, you can get fantastic Russells, but they tend to be, I think the show scene has spoiled them a little bit, I'm afraid to say.
Yeah, they're not working them as much.
Yeah, and some don't work them at all. You can go to working. If I go to working terrier show, I love judging in Ireland. I've judged in Germany, I've judged in Denmark, Belgium, Sweden, Prague, England, Ireland, and I've always found that the Irish people tend to be more working dogs than in England. They're frightened to death and the law and so on, and not as much country spaces. And they're just keeping them for the shows, and a lot of people, I'm not saying all, but a lot of people are just keeping them for the shows, and they tend to be a better looking dog, but maybe not a better working dog. And I like a working dog. But,
you have
and I look for working traits when the old-fashioned way when I was judging, the old judges used to say, if you see a dog with a tooth missing through work, and you can tell, a proper judge can tell if he's proper work or not, or scars, or they can tell if they're genuine, or some silly buggers that's literally cut a dog or brushed him with a wire brush and tripe like that. An experienced judge can tell at a glance, and a proper working dog, and they always reckoned if they'd got a scar, got any injuries, it should be marked down as perfect. Even a missing eye, a missing ear, and so on. It should be marked down as perfect because it's done it at work. And I've always adhered to that rule because I admire a working dog. And if I'm not sure between one and another, and one looks like it's had a scar or two, and there's not a lot of difference in them, but they're both equally tidy type of dogs, and one looks as if it's done work, then it's a working terrier show. I'm picking the dog that I think's done some work, got some scars and etc.
Makes sense.
So, genuine scars.
Yeah,
but that's me, and a lot of judges are not like that. A lot of judges are, I won't say lady judges because I'd be condemned for saying that. But
I get what you're saying.
They're looking for a different thing, a bit like the KC judges, and I think the KC people have actually ruined breeds.
whether it's what I call Alsatians. I think you call them German Shepherds today. The tails, the back end slope, and the weak haunches and hip dysplasia and so on, and massive oversized heads or bad boxer jaws and drooling. And I think they've ruined some breeds that were stunning a few years ago, the Fox Terriers and so on. I personally think the KC crowd have made some freaks, I'm afraid, and animals that struggle to be. I think a good working terrier should be good, fit, and healthy, and agile, and perfectly balanced. Not some freak that's too small or too big or too anything exaggerated to a ridiculous extent. I personally don't find a useful creature for doing its job. If something's working, it's usually a good balanced dog, whether it's a collie, a greyhound, or a hound. Whereas something's just KC registered, it's a totally different criteria. If you look at the greyhound of a KC registered, it's a freak that can barely run, but it's got such a deep chest and an exaggerated long tail and all traits that you do like, but exaggerated to the extreme. So.
Yeah, that's a lot of we spoke about that here before, and that's a lot of people agree that, you know, certain shows.
Anyway, my thoughts on the Lakeland Terrier. I've seen some very, very good ones, and I do like them, and I'm very impressed with them. But I tend to find there's so many of them that just won't work to a high standard. I'm not saying they won't kill a rat. They won't, most dogs will kill a rat. A Yorkshire Terrier should kill a rat.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but
no, it's true. It's true.
And if somebody enjoys ratting and does nothing else, good luck to them. Great sport, and I mean, great sport and enjoy it. I'm not knocking it at all. But the true work is a proper earth dog that'll stick. My old bruiser dog, I once turned him in on a Saturday afternoon, what I thought was a shallow place, and it went into a mine shaft and further down and went very, very deep. And we got him out. He never come off. He could have come off any time he'd wanted. We got him out in front of 3 badgers in the pot end. I think it was 3, maybe 4. And he was absolutely shattered. And I turned him in Saturday morning, and I didn't get him out till late Monday night, early hours of Tuesday morning. So he'd been in 3.
And that was your longest dig.
That's one of the longest digs I've ever witnessed, and no intentions of ever coming off, and he did never come off. And as I pulled him off, he was hanging on one, and we were all in pot end. We bagged him up and so on. And as I pulled him off, he sort of knew it was there, and he collapsed and went into like shock, really. And I got him. I got him on a drip straight away, and you know, got all this. Always carry decent stuff with me, and electrolytes and so on for a drink and things like that, and cleaned his eyes out, and not rubbing them, but actually spit and blowing them personally. For blowing, they tend to get sand in, and it can make them white-eyed, like in especially very sandy places, obviously, where they've pushed and pushed and pushed, and you could open the eyelids and they'd be caked with sand, top and bottom. Yeah. And you could almost lift the eyes open, and a good blow, and almost a spit blow at the same time, and a wash, and then rinse them off with a nice clean bottle, and straight away. That's an important thing with a terrier, and keep their eyes nice and clean.
Yeah.
Obviously, you know, when a dog's worked hard and got battered and knocked about a bit, maybe like a pit bull or whatever, it wants looking after, it wants keeping warm, it can soon go into shock, it wants rehydrating and keeping warm. Just throw him in a winter cold kennel, he'll be dead as a stone by morning if they go into shock. You know, you've got to care for them. They've cared for you, and they've done a long, hard day's work, a very hard day's work. You stand and fight for a man for half an hour, it's a long time, never mind hours and hours and hours. But a clever dog paces itself, you know. So, that old Sam was the same. We nearly dug him, the border cross dog. We nearly dug him over 3 days once. Me and the lad I gave him to, called Andy Fogarty, and he was a tremendous dog. But he'd bay steady,
and if they tried to move, he'd go in hard. So he was an intelligent dog. Maybe they outcrossing him, and he'd mix it and wouldn't let it move. He was very, very stubborn. But if it stayed there, he'd just set back 6 inches and just bay. And then sometimes he'd go quiet after a couple of hours if it was a big long dig. And you think, oh, is he all right? Is he dead? Is he okay? Has it collapsed on him? And he'd just be resting, and he'd just pinning him there. And the moment he tried to move again, he'd be barking again. So he'd pace himself, he would. Whereas Bruiser was a very, very hard dog and very, very game. Yeah, I never, ever saw him put a step wrong. If he got bitten and something was hanging on his face, his tail would wag more if he broke through. He seemed to enjoy pain, which is a bit ridiculous, but a good game dog, and he threw some terrific stuff, which is no doubt why he got his Hall of Fame for his pups and things, you know. And I gave him to my good friend Aaron Strawn for a stud dog after I retired him at about 8 years of age, and I also got frozen sperm off him, which I've still got a couple of vials. So that's good heavens, almost 20 years old now.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's a big expense. But if you want to keep something, you know, if your heart's into it, you do it, and that's that.
Yeah.
So
part of the deal, right?
Yeah.
Do you think diet and what you feed matters on how your Patterdale works?
I don't know. Obviously, a good healthy food. I like a good nut. I often feed a Purina nut, which with around about 24% protein. You can get higher proteins, and it depends how hard you work in your dog, how often you work in your dog. But I use a nut and leftover house food, if you like. Meat that's left and chopped up and thrown in, and odd egg twice a week. But a good healthy food, and obviously keep your eye on your dog. You don't want to get overweight. You don't want it being underweight. I feed about the size of an apple a day, a good apple, good size apple if you like, for an average terrier. But some are greedier than others, and some a bit like people. Some burn energy and stay slim, and some get fat looking at it, and so you're guided by your own dog and your own eye, really.
Yep.
But I like to feed. I like to throw a dog anything I know it's going to eat it. So whatever table scraps I have, and probably 3/4 of it's a decent dog nut, maybe a greyhound. It's very good as well.
Yeah, you don't think the diet does anything as far as the work?
Not really. I bred greyhounds for a living in Ireland, and I always kept the terriers. And I got to know some top greyhound people, some good heavens, people that had won the Derby and all sorts. And I had a lot of first-class information on, and some of the best greyhound trainers that won everything. And they swore to me that it made no difference what they fed them. A good dog's a good dog, and I'm not saying they fed it rubbish, but they never had any prolific change because they'd had all of a sudden a type of dog food.
There's some type of decent food.
So, but decent food, and a dog likes regularity in food. Unlike a human being, we might like lots of different things. A dog likes a similar thing time after time. And obviously, if you find something it really loves, whether it's tripe, which is the stomach lining of, say, sheep, etc., something like I was a butcher for years, 18 years. Something like breast of lamb, great for putting weight on and pregnant bitches, and something they can chew and crunch up without a hard, brittle bone that's going to get stuck in the throat. But say breast of lamb bones, they can actually cleanse the teeth and get a lot of goodness out of it. And as I say, I like to crack an odd raw egg, maybe twice a week, sometimes 3 times a week in a dog's bowl as well. You know, so I always find that gives them a nice classy coat. And it's common sense, really. If with the greyhounds, if they were going into distance races, I used to mix the juice of rice and things with that to give a bit more carbohydrates and so on, so give you a bit more stamina. So it's a bit of common sense, really. I'd never feed a terrier the day I was going to work it.
Okay.
And
why is that?
But because if you've had a big Christmas dinner and a Patterdale tends to be greedy, and you go out and fight, you're going to
be a little slower, a little.
So you're better on an empty stomach, or very little. If you want to feed it, then feed it, but don't feed it too much. Just a small amount, even the size of an egg, and give him a good food or her a good food when you get home and it's done. So, but the only problem is when the dog's often been on badger and this, they can get, the moment you get back, feed them, because if you don't, within an hour or two, especially foxes and raccoons and things, they start to swell up and they get sick and they don't want to eat. So if you can clean them up and feed them almost straight away before they start to swell, at least you've got some nourishment in them.
And one of my friends has a dog where it tends to, all the dogs don't, but he has one dog that tends to swell up for some reason. Like the face, I'm not sure.
Is he harder, or is it just the dog himself? Does he think?
I think it's just the dog, because he could do the same thing with 4 of his dogs, and this one dog always swells up.
Yeah, I had a friend that I had a very hard dog years ago. I was only a young man at the time, and he had a good hard Russell of all sorts, a very, very good dog, very, very hard, and good, almost a bull cross, like a strong bully head on him and big teeth. And he used to give him penicillin every Sunday when we got back. And the dog,
and that's what he does.
He swells and lumps and God knows what on him. He ended up with like penicillin poisoning. He overdid him with penicillin. Yeah.
Oh.
To me, it's good if you need it, but let a dog heal itself as it can, as long as.
So he was just doing it even
cleaned and maybe a bit of salt in the water,
So he was doing it even. He was doing it even if the dog didn't swell up. Or he was doing it before, just
as he got back, he stopped it and he'd give it a jab of penicillin, and he actually poisoned the dog. He died of penicillin poison, and it ended up with growths and lumps. And the vet told him it was through too much penicillin, and which was it's a bit like antibiotics. If you give lots and lots, it's not going to work. So let the dog. I think clean the wounds as best you can, stitch them if necessary, and if it's very bad, yes, give it a jab of penicillin. But unless it's bad, just keep it really nice and clean, and that's blue spray, or we call it blue spray, like the wound spray, and leave it at that. Some people use peroxide. That same fellow again, he used to use peroxide, like women used for dye the hair blonde or white. And that actually kills the skin. It just shoof all the sand and poison out of the little holes, but it actually kills the skin and you're actually rotting the dog away bit by bit, really. You're not allowing it to heal. So give a dog plenty of time to heal. Don't be frightened to give him a fortnight. And if he's got badly smashed up, leave him in the kennel for a month or at home for a month and look after him. Don't be frightened of putting him by your feet on a lead by the fireplace and especially first 24 hours, a little box, a little cage, and put him close to you and near a fire if you've got one, especially
nice and clean.
And make sure it's nice and warm and plenty of sheets around and because a lot of dogs are lost through shock. And they go in next morning and there's a dog stone dead and they think, it didn't have many marks on him. No, but it's gone into shock. It's been doing it a while and it's got exhausted and they've got to be looked after.
Yeah.
So, they look after you, you look after them.
That makes sense. Guardian of the Hive, what Patterdale do you think that you exported to the U.S. made the biggest impact?
I don't know. I didn't import
Good
that
question.
many, really. I sent over Tiny. I sent over Simon. I sent over Milo. I sent over a Lakeland Patterdale Cross. I sent over a quarter Pitbull Cross and 3/4 Patterdale that I'd only bred as an experiment, and that was the only one. All the rest were culled. That went over to Todd Fulford. There's a few dogs that I'd bred that were sent over and passed off at different names, me copper dog and things like that. But, and I've seen different pedigrees on it that were incorrect. But it didn't matter. It was a good dog, and I was pleased with him, and he went on and did well. Well, that was very early on when there was very few people in the Patterdales and so on in the States, some doctor that Tony Rivalotta used to work for was one of the early importers, and I can't just think of the other chap now's name. And he got a fair few terriers from my good friend Brian Nuttall. And, so it is what it is, and that's that. But a lot of the dogs I've sent over, people have been really pleased with. And when they've bred off and they've been pleased with them, and then some have gone to places that don't work them, and they've bred and bred and bred and bred, and 10 generations down, and they're not doing
nothing. Yeah.
What they were tested to do and what they should have been regularly tested to do. And I don't care whose dog it is, that'll ruin any dog. You've got to test them, and that's that. It's just common sense, really, isn't it?
Yeah, we all agree here. Everyone here is pretty much we all agree to where if you have a Patterdale, you got to work it or just don't get one.
Right, Antho, pros and cons of using Limey Alligator Pitbull Cross. I used a dog I had called Champion Nailus as an outcross once on a good Patterdale bitch. Hell of a dog, a good head dog, and nothing ever looked like beating him. He was a brute of a dog, a finishing dog, a bit too quick, really, because it's difficult to test them. And when they're blitzing through dogs a lot heavier than them and still winning, it's really and genuinely hard to test them. But anyway, I matched him, and he was open to match and did well, and became a champion easily. I used him. He threw some great pit dogs, especially with the Jeep stuff. But I used him once on a Patterdale and culled all the litter and kept a puppy back. And I bred from that again to Patterdale and culled them, apart from one pup that I sent to, as I say, Todd Fulford. And he was very impressed with it and really pleased. But I thought it was the wrong way to go down, and I personally didn't do it again. But I wouldn't condemn anybody for trying anything or experimenting, because that's what we all do and have done, and just be honest about it, and that's that. But I did do it the once, and I sort of had second thoughts about it. Very pleased with what had come eventually when it was like 3/4 Patterdale, but I thought it was the wrong way to go. And I do find bull crosses personally, for a terrier's point of view. Mm-hmm. A terrier, when you break through to something, say a fox, and just his nose is showing, he'll go and grab that nose and straight away he'll plant his legs and start towing backwards and pulling it out, or trying his best to pull it out. Obviously, they brace themselves and very difficult sometimes. You can help them. But a bulldog cross, instead of pulling, tends to bore in and push. And it's quite difficult to get them to draw the game, I find. But I do, and there's obviously bull terrier in a lot of the dogs further back, and I do tend to keep Patterdales with the good bully heads. The old penny bitch that Ryan had was a bully-headed type bitch, and she was bred to a great dog, and a fella called Colin Dixon bred, I believe, who bred Kengal, Smithy, etc. And them days, I mean, I was well in my 20s, and Ken was 10, 15 years older than me, if not 18 years older than me. And he was pretty new into terriers then. I can remember the first Patterdale he ever had, a dog called Bear. Not as he'll probably remember it, from a fella in Chorley near Manchester. And anyway, not as that matters. But yeah, the some of them great Patterdales had got some staff in them called Red Joe. But it was only when they were bred down an eighth, that dog, and 7/8 Patterdale, that they started coming really useful. And they threw a nice Patterdale with a lovely head, and that type we kept back. And I, as I say, I did do it once, but I've never done it since. I've never kept anything off them since, genuinely. But I do like to keep a dog with a nice bully head. And obviously that does throw back to the original old Red Joe, etc. You know, if you want to follow your pedigrees back that far. But you know, I can. But that's by the by. And you know, but you're talking. It's in there, and it'll always be in there. People say, "Oh, that's you know, grandfather." It doesn't bloody matter. Of course, it matters. If it's in there, it's in there. If you put a Labrador in there, you'd bloody know it was its grandfather. It'd be bloody massive, and so on. So you know, everything that's in there is important, and it's a bit like whip it in lurchers. The old man used to say, "Whip it in and whip it out." Don't have too much of it, but it's great in there somewhere. And I find the same with bull. So. But that's just my opinion, and it's for use of work only, not for aesthetics or getting a great big, you know, some skinny little fella with a great big bloody dog and look how brave I am and walking down the street with it. You know, it's horses for courses and what they can do, and I'm only interested in if they can work well and hunt well and find well.
Correct. And so great. I know the size works as well in the States for badger and coyote dens, or for above ground, similar to a YAG. Does Mr. Booth contribute head size to bite power? Yes, I think.
I think head size, as I said earlier on, I have seen dogs with a terrific bite, even pit bulls and game dogs, with a terrific bite and probably not the best of heads, but it's a freak of a dog, I think. The dogs with a big, powerful head or big, powerful jaw, more almost an English Bull Terrier type jaw, you know, a thick jaw, but not massive all head and little muzzlers. Some of the staff with show stuff bred today, they look horrible. But they've got what I call apple heads and no jaw. I like something with a good, strong jaw and good, strong teeth too. But I think that's common sense, and it's just if I'm picking me pups, I like to see something that's gamey, something that'll shake anything I show it, whether it's a little bit of fur or even a kiddie's teddy bear. It'll from the get-go, it wants to shake stuff, and it shows to be gamey. It's no guarantee, but I like to pick a pup that way, and I like them. I always try and breed from the ones with good, strong heads and narrow fronts and nice types. So hopefully you end up with a better type, and maybe your own type. I don't know, but. Yeah. That's we all go different routes, and that's the route I tend to go. So yes, I would contribute jaw size, if you like, and a strong head to bite power personally. But somebody could easily say to me, "Oh, I had a little dog, and he could kill foxes, and he could bite the noses off." And yes, I have seen it myself, but I've seen a lot more powerful dogs. A bit like I said about. Boxers with small hands, you know, there's no given law, there's no exact science, but obviously if you've got the stature and the ability and the size and power, it's but there's always exceptions to the rule. There's always the Usyk's versus the 6'8" giant that thinks he's a will beater, and you know gets proven.
Yeah, There's always those
so,
few.
we've all seen it, but which one do you breed from? It's what you want the dog for, and what, and that's top and bottom of it. It's all out of common sense, I think. And I like a good family, a proven family that reproduces. I always think apples don't fall far from the tree, and quality will always come. So
I agree.
I don't know.
You want to show somebody? We could show some of these pics you gave me.
Yeah, that was a one-eyed bitch. She lost an eye to a fox. I think that'd be, good heavens, that'd be about 23 or 4 there. As I say, I'm 70 now, so that's a long time. She was a decent bitch, a very, very good bitch, called Sock.
Okay.
And in my line today. It's not that many generations back, actually. And I did double breed round her and so on. Tipperary Tim and etc. goes back to her. So,
Okay. Is that her in this pic? Is one of these dogs her? Or these different dogs?
Both of them were out of my old Tonic Hall of Fame bitch. The smaller one in my right hand was a male, funnily enough. And he was out of little Tipperary Tim and Tonic, and the one in my left hand was a bitch, which was out of Sam and Tonic. That's round about 30 odd years ago. As I say, I think it'd be about 40 years of age then. And funnily enough, I had a big TV company condemn me and saying that I'd got fighting pit bulls, and this was the picture they used to show it on the TV. Yeah. As you can see, it's a Sony at the bottom. Is a picture of a TV, and that was they did a 4-page spread of me and showing pictures of other people's pit bulls, and I didn't know any of them. A load of lies, like often, but it doesn't matter. And they were my so-called pit bulls, but they were Patterdales. I suppose they thought the scars and they knew no different. So it made good media and good press at the time. Yeah. So didn't do me any good, but there we go. But them were my little terriers at the time. Both out of Tonic. And one Tipperary Tim. The one on the right, the male, is a full brother to Tiny, and the one in my left hand was a full brother to Simon, and Brew, and several other good dogs. So they were decent enough at the time. And as you can see, I know I've got big hands, and I'm a pretty big chap, but the one on the right was a nice, handy-sized terrier. Sorry, not on the right, in my right hand. So and that was we used to make the couplings as well. That we found those were great. Just I can comment on that. You can see it's like a long link and a swivel and a centre ring in the middle, and you can let terriers loose together. And if they both try to fly down a tight hole, one would go in first and the other would lock behind it, and he could tend to get there and stop them disappearing. So they were always great things to run terriers loose if you were walking across the fields with these couplings on. And you could just fasten a lead in the centre ring, as you can see in the middle. So just a little thing. You can make them yourself very, very easily. Just a couple of D-rings and swivels and a long ring, and fasten to a collar either end with a little clip swivel. But nowadays they seem to make them, and they used to be called hound couplings. They used to use them on hounds to stop them, put a silly hound with a more sensible hound, if you like, and you can do it with a terrier. If you've got one that's a bit more biddable and comes when you call it, and the other one wants to go off hunting, clip them together and it just slows them down a bit and makes them learn a bit of sense. So that's another little tip, if you like.
Yeah, I know people who still. I know people that still make themselves, but for the most part, like you said, there's a whole bunch of companies making them now. But a lot of people, I never really heard of too many people that use them for still at least for hunting. They might use them just to walk their dogs or keep their dogs together or stuff. But as far as when they hunt,
if you try them loose with a sensible dog, it does tend to keep the young dog a bit more under control, like the puppy, and it's almost leaning it to it's getting pulled along or slowed down
etc. by the other dog. So it just makes them a little bit more steady. So it's quite a useful tip.
Does it kind of teach the younger dog to follow the big dog, just in general?
Yes, to a certain degree,
thing?
but they get as they go together, great. And obviously, if you're not careful, they go through brambles. One will go one side, one will go the other. You use it where it's suitable. You wouldn't just use it anywhere.
Yeah.
That's
Makes sense. Makes sense. Anthro, how you doing, bro? He has a question. Mr. Booth's take on Mr. Plummer and his many projects. What's your take on Mr. Plummer's projects?
What do you mean, Brian Plummer?
Yes, I think that's who. Yeah,
Brian. I knew Brian. Okay, he came to interview me actually for the Fell Terrier book, but I was too young and I didn't really want to be in it. And as I say, at the time, I was getting a lot of hassle from the media and TV and press, bad anti-hunting attention, if you like. So the last thing I wanted to be was mentioned in that. But he was a good chap and a school teacher. Again, funnily enough, Mr. Bray was a school teacher headmaster. But Brian Plummer lived in Leicestershire before he moved up to the north of Scotland, very far north of Scotland. And I visited him and he visited me a couple of times. And he's a nice chap. And like a lot of others, I disagreed with some of what he said. No doubt people will disagree with a lot of what I've said. And that doesn't make us enemies. That makes us having a different opinion. He used some of Brian Nuttall's Patterdales and he bred them with Jack Russells, and he also put a bit of beadle in, I remember, to make what he called the Plummer Terrier. And a lot ridiculed them and said, they've not been tested for years, and he got a lot of bad mouthing from a lot of English people. But in fairness, it was unfair because they have since proven themselves to be a very good, useful all-round terrier. A lot were bred more for ratting, which I don't think is the top work of a dog, but a lot have proven themselves in the field, especially if decent breeders have gone on and bred them for their own purposes and bred from the dogs that suited them. And obviously the area you work, you should breed to that, not just breed to if you're in a wooded area, you want a dog to suit a wooded area. If you're digging mostly raccoon, or if you're digging mostly even, well, I won't say woodchucks because they're too small, but groundhogs, etc. You want dogs to suit what you hunt, I believe, and breed to that. And that's only common sense. It's no use getting big badger dogs if they're not suitable for what you want to hunt, unless you're using certain traits that you feel killing power and so on.
Yeah. Correct.
So no, I haven't done any of his projects. I did try, as I say, with my pit bull dog. It was my own dog, and I won't say it wasn't successful because the Fulfords told me they were more than pleased with her, but she was killed early and never bred from, I believe, and that was the end of that, and it died a death like a lot of terriers do, like a lot of English terriers do. They believe in working them for 10 years or 8 years before they ever breed from them and all this. And I think a good dog is a good dog if it's a puppy age. Yes, it's got to be tested and tested well, but if you work them too long and too many years, you're going to lose that dog and the line's gone forever. So I think a lot of good dogs are lost through that too, and a lot of good lines are lost through that. And people say, "Oh, I wish I'd got a pup off Bertie now. He was
waiting too long to breed him."
Yeah, it's nice to keep something back, and if they don't turn out, cull them. But at least get something on the ground that you know, if you're quite confident in that line and quite confident in it working and it's shaped up well, don't be frightened of breeding off it. And you can always go and cull, but you can't go and recreate them after a dog's lost and dead and gone, or a bitch. You know, you can lose them all too easily, especially with the hard job we do.
So do you have a ideal age that you wait to breed your females, or?
I've had accidents.
Not wait, I mean age.
I've had accidents a couple of times, and I even had a bitch that hadn't started work. Showed a very, very game bitch, showed to be game, but no real test in it. And she got pregnant at 10 months old, and I let her have the pups. And the pups were all bloody world beaters, as it turned out. I let them go to different folks. It was a genuine accident. And she turned out to be a topping bitch. But at worst, if they hadn't turned out and she hadn't have been, I would normally have not bred a bitch till the probably 2.5. I think that's ideal age. And summertime when I'm not hunting, 2.5 to 3 is plenty soon enough to start. But if it's in season and it's summertime and I'm not hunting them now and they're well, I think, well, I'll have plenty of time to have a litter of pups and put them on the ground and then return the bitch to work in the winter when we go looking for foxes and so on, you know.
So you don't hunt in the summer at all?
I don't tend to like to work in France here. The open season for badgers is in March. It starts in March, which is crazy to me. It's nearly all badgers have cubs round about the beginning of March. And I don't like to kill my own sport. I don't like to. A friend of mine from Southern Patterdales once went out with me at Christmas Eve, and I dug a vixen, heavy in cub, which is very, very early. They wouldn't usually come in cub till April time. And I handled her and got her out and saw she was in pup, and I let it go. And he went, "Oh, another pregnant one slipped your hands, Mr. Booth." I said, "Yes, I'd rather one with 6 inside it go free, and what's the point of killing one vixen and you've probably killed 6 or 7? You're killing your own sport." And I think it's well, that's me. Everybody to their own. Some want everyone they see dead and think they're a nuisance and so on, and I'm not condemning them for that, but we're each to their own. But I don't like to kill my own sport, and I don't tend to hunt things when I think they breed me. So that's just me. That was a good pitch there. That's a bitch called Donna a few years ago now. She was a granddaughter to Bruiser out of a dog called Pinto that I had. And all the litter were top. She's actually got a bit of, or a 50%, should I say, not a bit, of my good friend Rudy Schwab's Germany stuff in. That's that. Yes, a very good bitch. Donna, she was called. And the brother was Pinto, a very good dog, and another dog I had. Oh no, I'm telling a lie. I'm sorry, I've got mistaken. Pinto was her little brother. Bruiser was her father. That's what I say. You can make these mistakes and just get mixed up, especially when you're talking 20 years ago and so on. So Bruiser was her father, and Pinto's father, and what was the other dog? Pepone. They were all in France. They have to be named with the letter. They don't have to, but if you register them with the vet and get them the chip and all this, they should be done alphabetically. And one year it might be A, another year it's B. That particular year it was P. So one was Pinto, the other, I don't know, being fair, they call that Donna, so I don't know what the theory is there, but one was Pinto, one was Pepone anyway, that was registered with my vet. So that was that. So anyway, but that was a bitch. Yeah. And that's Donna again, actually, a bitch.
A nice size badger.
Yeah, good size, yeah. And obviously people think, oh, the dog's gone and killed the badger. No dog's going to kill a badger. I won't say no dog. I have, in 60 years of doing it, I've dug down to 3 dead badgers. And I think I've also had badgers put in a sack and die. I think the heart's gone. But a lot more dogs kill with badger than badgers kill by a dog. And a badger is far harder than any dog, believe you me, and can give a dog a lot of stick.
Champion dog terrier.
That's a judged a show in Northern Ireland just last year. His chin's all hanging and done a lot of work. But funnily enough, I didn't know at the time, but I think there was round about 400 terriers entered in that show.
and he won. And I went on to find out later he'd won 3 or 4 previous shows, champion, and also under different judges, and also a couple of shows after. But I believe the dog's dead now at work, I'm afraid. But that was only last year. But a good dog.
So that was more recent.
Yeah, that was last year.
Yeah. Let's see what else we have here. You sent me a few more pictures. There's another one with a nice sized badger.
Yeah, that's more recent. That's more me now, an old man. That's with my stout bitch that she was 13, a daughter of Guinness, and Guinness was out of tonic. So, I mean, you're talking of 40 years breeding in 3 terriers, but Guinness, actually, she was the only pup in the litter, and she got covered by her father when she was 13, and she had the one puppy. So it had never normally bred from a bitch that old. And Guinness was the same. Old Tonic was finished, I thought, and got caught very, very late, and in the teens, and had the one puppy, which was Guinness. So obviously, going that far back, I kept them. I kept both bitches, and so that's that.
We have 2 good-looking dogs right here.
Yeah, I've got my Fury bitch sitting aside of me somewhere there now.
Oh, let me make it a little bigger. Oh yeah, there you go. People can see
Not
it.
very clear. It's getting a bit dark here this evening now. It's 10 to 10 at night. So
Yeah, we could see it though. These 2 dogs right here, are these?
they are both out of Guinness. One's called Choc, and the other one's called Guinea. They both went to Belgium. They are out of Simon and Guinness. So that's, but that's a long time ago now. They'd be dead and gone, both from work. It's but decent enough terriers. Yeah. He made very famous the dog on the right. I liked the dog on the left. I thought she was a nice, handy size and nice and narrow. But she was a bitch on the left and a male on the right.
Okay. What was your oldest dog? As far as your Patterdale, like what was the oldest one?
My Guinness bitch lived to be 22.
Okay.
And I worked until she was 10 and retired her then. And she lived another 12 years. And she actually slipped in my swimming pool here, and ashamed to say she'd drowned. I'd let her out, and she knew it was there. She'd been out many, many evenings, but she was getting frail. And I'd let her out, and 10 minutes later, she didn't come to the door, and I thought it was strange, and I went out, and there she was, floating in the pool. So I was heartbroken over her. But they've all got to go sometimes, like all of us. So that's that. She lived to be a damn good age of 22. And Guinness lived to be 18. My stout bitch had a stroke, and she was only about 13 or 14. So for me, that's quite young. Yeah. I'll keep, if a dog's work for me, I'll keep it all its life, and it can stay by the fire. You know, like this Fury bitch here. She's thrown some tremendous stuff, and hell of a good badger bitch. So to me, she deserves a good place.
They deserve it. Yeah, definitely.
And that's a 7/8 brother. That's in the States now. That's Clint.
Oh, that's Clint. Okay.
That's Clint there. Yeah, that was when he was here working here.
I had a little bit about Clint.
Yeah, and
that's awesome.
Good dog. He was abused a fair bit, to be honest. Not by the owner's fault, but by fools deliberately trying to spoil him and put dogs in behind him. And he was getting he actually got chewed almost through to the bone with 2 terriers behind him while he was working a badger at the front, and it almost spoiled him. But I bought him from Tom Jones and kept him on and rested him a fair while, and then worked him, and he worked absolutely spot on. But like a lot of dogs, I heard a lot of people knocking him, especially the lads that deliberately tried to spoil him. But
Yeah.
he was a damn good dog, and a dog wasn't fat, and also become Hall of Fame and through some great workers. So, you know, I was very pleased. And a smart dog. He looks a big dog there, but he wasn't a big dog at all. Big enough for you American guys, but for us, he'd be a 13-inch dog to the shoulder, and probably fit, he'd probably be 9 kilos. Okay. So I don't know if that's a guide.
Yeah, that's good stuff. That's good stuff. Yeah, man. We've been on here for an hour and 40 minutes now.
Okay, well, I'll leave you in peace, and good luck to you all, and keep it friendly and enjoy your sport.
Yeah, and I would like to get you on here maybe again in a couple of months when
whenever
I'm doing a little bit more hunting
any
and
help for anything, I'd do it a pleasure. All the very best, and good night.
No problem. Good night.
Bye
Thank you.
now. Nice to
Appreciate
chat to you. Thank you very much, and thanks for the invite. Bye now.
Bye.